Okay, so now to set up this product shop, we're going to do this a little bit differently. You've seen how to do an infinite background that just kind of disappears with our first cologne bottle. A little more photo studio with the glass and the reflection for the perfume. So let's do a little more kind of a daylight setup using a sink. So we'll go to items. We're going to load an object. And in your folder there's a sink. And this is not a complete sink. There's no faucet or anything. I might need to size it up. It's just kind of a little bit of a bowl, because we're going to concentrate on the product, not the entire sink. Okay, so I'm just going to rotate this, just get our top view here. And then we're going to move it over like this, move it down like this, because that's where that little guy is going to live. And we're going to concentrate on that area. And of course, let's go to our side view and then just move it down like that so it's sitting on it. Good. And we'll check our camera. And let's pull our camera back, rotate around, open the camera properties, and just like we did on the first one, we're going to actually zoom the camera in. And give it a little bit nicer look that way. Kind of do something like that. And we're going to pretend that this one is going to have some words on it or something. So we're going to render it off to the side like that. So that's all we wanted, was just the edge of that sink. Now for that sink, it's going to just be a porcelain. So we can keep it the white surface. We're going to make it highly shiny, okay, and highly reflective, probably about 60. And we're going to bring this back down to about 40 and make sure it is smooth, okay. The reflection for it's going to be ray tracing and backdrop. So we want to make sure that in the render globals panel, under render, we have ray trace shadows and ray trace reflection. Okay. Save the scene. We'll call this SoapLotion. And of course, it's rotated the wrong way. So let's do that. Let's do that the right way. There we go. Okay, just a quick render. Now, we haven't set up any lighting yet. All we do is turn on shadows and reflections. And maybe we'll tell the sink not to reflect the environment yet. Well, we'll leave it because it needs to reflect the environment in order to get just a little more realistic look. But our environment right now is black. Not much to it. Okay, so we also need to put some surfaces on this plastic up here. So all we got to do is jump into Modeler. And we're going to make an inexpensive tile wall. The way you do that, create a new object. We're going to make a wall like this. And with my mouse in this view, press my up arrow and then press my right arrow, and I create a number of segments. F2 to center. And this is where you want to flip it forward so all these polygons are facing forward like that. But with no polygon selected, you want to bevel these, okay? And that just really quickly just creates some tiles for us. You can do a double if you want, pulling them down a little bit and kind of pushing them forward just by right-clicking once. And if you're going to do it that way, it's often good just to make sure you select all of them first and watch what happens. You're going to bevel a little bit like this, and that's going to keep that selection. Right-click and bevel again, and then just kind of come in and push them out like that. So you got to pay attention to each view. Okay, and maybe we'll do it one more time. I'm going to shift them out a little bit like that, and then we'll actually just shift them in, just inset them. And that's good. Okay, and then I'm going to go shift bracket, which is going to expand my selection. Press Q. We'll call these wall tiles. And the color we want to use for this is going to be sort of this kind of peachy color. Put on smoothing and some nice specularity. Then shift, single quotes, reverses my selection. And looks like I might have a little too much selected. I want to select just that backing in there. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to undo a couple of times. And then shift up arrow. Shift right bracket key. just enough to get that selection. Because what I want to do is see if we can put a little grout in there. We might not need to. Yeah. But we'll press Q and we'll name this, same thing again, back wall. And if you want, you can separate these and probably put a little bit of grout in there, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary on this one. Okay, so I'm going to save this as wall and send it to layout. Because I changed my view, these are coming in straight down the Z, so we just want to rotate them to fit. And we'll pull that back here. Rotate a little bit, like that. Back to camera view. Shift H, we're going to scale that up. And that's a pretty good ratio right there. For the surface for the tiles, tiles are probably one of the easiest things to do, simply because you just don't want too much smoothing. So we're going to bring that probably just above 20, like that, just so it curves out. That's why we did 2 bevels there, so it creates just a little bit of a rounded edge. And the same kind of thing, where it's just a little bit of reflection. So we're going to go maybe 90, about 50, 50, and about 10. That's it. And by default, it's a ray trace reflection. So when you render, this is now going to reflect the sink as well as the canister there. Okay. And our sink looks a little more metallic than porcelain, so we're probably going to dial that reflection back a bit. But you can also get away with a blurred reflection as well. But the tiles are always a nice touch. It makes your scene look a lot more intricate, and you saw how easy it was to create. I remember doing those, 15, 20 years ago, rebuilding things, and people think you spent so much time, and that's all it is. Now, you might like the metal sink like that. For me, it's a little too reflective. I want to go just a little more white. But as far as the tiles, we got just the right amount of reflection on there, and it's looking great. And again, all we have right now is our default distant light. We haven't actually worked with our lighting yet. So let me do one more thing. I'm going to pull this sink down. Okay, we got too much reflection. I'm going to bring that to about 20, make my diffuse 80, and I'm going to make it a little bit brighter white. And actually almost maybe even just a tint to the ivory rather than gray. I'm going to save the scene. Press F9 to render. I always say before I render, a good practice to get into. And like I said, we can probably blur the reflections just a little bit in the sink, because it might just be, of course, a little too clean. And from here, what we're going to do is create some nice window light coming in our next scene. And we're also going to use some black and white images for that. You can see how important those are throughout this whole project, or throughout this whole course and all the projects. Okay, so sink's looking better. Might be a little too clean. I don't think my sink's that clean at home. But let's move on to the next video.